Cosmic Tusk podcast. I am particularly pleased to be joined today by a dear old friend, Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe, who is a cosmologist, an astronomer, a mathematician, and a member of the British Empire. And I'm proud to call him my friend. And we've been friends for over a decade now. And we talk from time to time on the phone. We correspond. And we were, if you'll allow, Chandra, shooting the shit last week. And I said, let's do it recorded. Let's talk. We've done one or two podcasts in the early days of this show, and it's been a while. So I just wanted to bring you back on, Chandra, and let's just talk as if we were talking on the phone.
Okay, yeah. I mean, lots of things are happening since we last had our podcast and our conversation, isn't it? I mean,
we get closer and closer to the big reveal that you revealed to us some 60 years ago.
Well, I think it's happening. It's happening faster than I could have imagined ever. But at the same time as it's the transformation is taking place, there's also a huge plot to avoid any citations of or references to me or to Fred Hoyle or to the collaborators that I had worked with for nearly 50 years. I mean, there's no doubt that every bit of science that's been discussed now, sugars in meteorites, biomolecules in exoplanets, biomolecules in comets, and so on. And we've said that for decades and decades, and there's no mention about that. The way that I started into this area of research was in trying to unravel the properties of cosmic dust. If you look at the night sky on a cloudless night, dark night, you see all the Milky Way, the stars, myriads and myriads of stars in the Milky Way. And in between those stars, there are huge structures that appear like clouds, like elephants' trunks and so on, various shapes, dark shapes. And the question in the 1960s that essentially puzzled astronomers everywhere in the world, not only in Britain, but America and so on, is what is this material made of? What is the stuff that is causing? Are there really holes in the distribution of stars? Or is it something that is overlying the distribution of stars and showing up as these dark clouds? Now, when I started my research and started my work as a young astronomer in Cambridge, everyone believed that these clouds consist of myriads and myriads of ice particles, tiny ice particles, like the ice particles that you see in these cloudy skies, right? And in the cumulus clouds of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, I decided to re-examine this long-held idea that it was ice. And very soon, within a year and a half, I came to the conclusion that it cannot be ice. It is not ice. Ice does not match any of the astronomy that follows from looking at these things. And the alternative that I proposed in 1962 was that the main component of this cosmic dust was carbon, right? And that was, we wrote papers in Nature, in the monthly, all the high-profile journals and so on. They got published, but they also got attacked by the guys who were maintaining the ice story, right? And it was a very, very bitter struggle that followed from my work in the 1960s. But eventually, as it always turns out, facts reign supreme, right? This was the dawn of the space age. There were observations of stars and stuff above the Earth's atmosphere, from above the Earth's atmosphere. And very soon it turned out that the ice grain ideas were deeply flawed. It could not be ice, right? So end of the 1960s, astronomers were reluctantly admitting that the work of Hoyle and Wickramasinge, published extensively about carbon dust in space, had to be correct. But the next question is, what is the carbon made of? Is it just like soot, or is it something more interesting? And then for the next maybe 10 years, from 1960 to 1970, we were really busy trying to thrash out the possibilities, various possibilities of how the carbon is arranged in these particles. And the trend that we discovered, and we published that extensively also in detail, was that these were organic molecules. Organic molecules, the dust was organic, right?
Right.
So we published papers saying that there are sugars in space, polysaccharides in space, amino acids in space, in these dust particles, and so on. So all that is recorded. There's no question about it in all the journals, but it is forgotten now, because now people are coming around almost every other week to say, "Oh, we've discovered sugars in a meteorite," and
which happened just a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks
right?
ago, yeah.
Right. And you were saying before I was born, and I'll have my 60th birthday on Monday.
Okay.
Before I was born, you're saying the same thing,
right.
and now they're doing press releases.
Yeah, that's right.
Without attribution or citation to you.
Absolutely. And it's a total, George, it's a total travesty of science and scientific practice. I mean, if you're really a good scientist, you've got to stand on the shoulders of giants, isn't it? And I don't claim that I'm a giant, but you should.
But they are standing on your shoulders.
They are standing on your shoulders, yeah. Unwittingly or knowingly, and ignoring that fact. So that's what's happening now. And there's a biomolecules discovered since we last talked. Biomolecule, what's it called? DMS, dimethyl sulfide, in an exoplanet again. This is at about several hundred light years away. A solar system, like our solar system, a planetary system, has a planet with oceans, and there's a signature of this molecule, which is they agree that it's a biomolecule. There's no way of making that. So again, this is biology. But I think what they are missing out now, George, is that they're saying that these biomolecules are everywhere and so on. They're accepting that. But that is old hat for us. I mean, we had come to that conclusion half a century ago. But the big question, the really million-dollar question, is what does that mean? Does it mean that there is life there? Or does it mean that there's just fragments of molecules that are associated with life? And I think the answer to the question really was something that we've answered throughout our books and so on, is that the transition from these building blocks of life, the amino acids or the dimethyl sulfide, to life, to the simplest living system, is incredibly, incredibly improbable, right? So you can dump all of this material on the Earth, in the primitive oceans of the Earth, but you wouldn't get anything happening, and unless there's life everywhere in the cosmos. And that's the position that we, as you know, we thrashed out over decades and decades to say that this really means what we're finding is life as a truly cosmic phenomenon. The Earth is just a receiving station for the legacy of cosmic life. And likewise, any other planet, maybe Mars in our solar system, would have been, if conditions were appropriate, correct at the time, would have been a recipient planet for taking on these cosmic living systems. So I think that's going to be the eventual final upshot of all this work. It's going to turn out that people have, in the next decade, to admit that the origin of life from molecules, you can forget about it. It does not happen. It's a one-off thing in the entire universe, right? It doesn't happen repeatedly. It doesn't happen on every new planet that is formed. What happens is that these dust particles in space are biological, largely biological. They're essentially bacterial, viral particles, and they can take root on any planet where the conditions are correct.
So, well, would it be fair to say Earth is a collection plate for life?
Yeah, it's a collection plate. It's like a in the laboratory you have these little plates with nutrients and so on, and bacteria fall on them, and they multiply and so on. But I mean, I should also admit that this is not original to us really, because 100 years earlier, a man called Louis Pasteur, a French biologist in France, did several experiments, and he concluded that life can only be derived from pre-existing life, right? He had these little flasks with nutrients, stuff that bacteria like to grow on, and nothing happened when the lid was closed. Nothing seemed to grow. As soon as the lid was opened and bacteria and stuff was able to settle on the liquid, and so Louis Pasteur, and at this very early time, made the statement that life can only be derived from pre-existing life, right?
Right.
All that is forgotten, George. It's amazing that whole history is forgotten, and also the fact that people reacted to Louis Pasteur, very distinguished scientist, physicist in Europe, reacted to it, and one of the guys, I think it was a great geologist, who said that we have to admit that life is as old as matter itself. I think that's the
that it's intrinsic, that it can't be thought of separately as something that's whipped up from stuff. Life is omnipresent.
Is omnipresent. It's the universe. Universe is equal to life, or encompasses, includes life. You cannot have a universe without life. And I think there's also, George, you probably followed this story. There's also huge controversy now on the age of the universe. The universe is thought to be a Big Bang universe that suddenly emerged from ex nihilo, from nothing.
Which Fred Hoyle had a problem with.
Yeah, he had a problem with it. Nalika had a problem. And on the sidelines, I had an intellectual problem with it, because I have come from a background of Buddhist philosophy that says that the universe is eternal. So the universe, being much, much older than 13.7, is coming home to roost now. Every single observation that has been done with the famous James Webb telescope has shown that biomolecules, organic molecules, exist when there should not be even stars, right? At very close to the 13.7, maybe before 13.7 billion years, they're finding these. And they are embarrassed about it, but they're also quite confident that they can ride this out, because they're so sure that the Big Bang is like a biblical truth.
You took the spectral signature of a galactic cloud. Was it IRS7?
Yeah.
See that line?
Oh, yeah,
that's
my
the
God.
spectral signature for the galactic cloud. I guess it's the dots or the galactic cloud. And then the solid line
is a prediction.
Is E. coli.
Yeah.
Well, what does that tell us? Why is it unexpected, and why was that not that is the discovery of life instead?
In the quest for finding out what the carbon in cosmic dust is made of, this was an experiment that we had suggested. Fred and I suggested to the Anglo-Australian telescope, which is at the time the most powerful telescope in the world, to look at a very, very faint and distant source of radiation, of starlight, because that radiation will go through all the dust between that distant object and us.
Right.
And if the dust was bacterial, we would predict that there would be a certain signature, right? And it's that signature that emerged just exactly at the time that the telescope was switched on. And my brother, Dal Wickramasinghe, who was an Australian astronomer, was also involved, along with other collaborators. And they were just astonished. And at the time that this was being done, this observation in real time, Fred Hoyle and I were together in Cardiff, and my brother sent a fax. In those days, you don't send emails or anything.
Right.
The fax machine, and the fax machine just churned out this whole spectrum, which exactly was the spectrum that we had predicted, right? And so, things like that don't happen unless you're dealing with hard, real, irrefutable facts, right? So we were very excited. We published papers and in journals and so on, and it's dumbfounded the establishment of astronomy. Well, of course, the biologists said, well, these bumps and so on are something that we can try to explain. You take all the components of a living cell, right? Just all the amino acids and so on, and put them together, mix them together, you would get the spectrum, right? Fair enough. I mean, that's true. If you break up the bacterium into proteins and so on, you would get that. But it doesn't mean anything. Who put the stuff together exactly as it is present in a living system? So it was largely ignored, forgotten, because the conclusions were absolutely profound. If this is valid, if the claim is valid that there's life right through the galaxy, then the primordial soup theory is out of the window, right? And you must remember that from the earliest age when we learn science, the first page of our biology books, we are told that life started in a primordial soup in the primitive oceans of the earth, which was sort of sprinkled with a few organic molecules, right? So this is completely is thrown out of the window. You're seeing life as an eternal attribute of the universe, present everywhere and so on. So this was a problem, and then we found the same signature in comets, like the comets that was observed in the Rosetta mission, exactly the same. So it kept on coming, but it was ignored largely by astronomers who sort of tried to move on to other things. It was too embarrassing to dissect it in a rational way. So the next procedure that is adopted is to ignore it. If you don't like it, if you can't find a rational, hard reason for saying this cannot be so, you just ignore it. And you say that these guys are nuts. And that's what happened to us.
I think it's proper to invoke Hoyle's famous quote, at least amongst our circles, that the likelihood of life organizing itself on our planet, can be likened to a tornado hitting a junkyard and creating a jumbo jet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's simply the organizing properties of matter do not lend themselves to the creation of life.
Absolutely. And then I think we should also, George, remember that for now pretty close to 50 years, the most powerful laboratories, the best equipped laboratories, chemical laboratories, biochemical laboratories in the world have been trying to make life from non-life, right? And it has been a dismal failure, which is what I expect, and what we expect from all the arguments that we have discussed over the years. So that's not happened. But the entrenched belief, which is a cultural, I think it's a cultural thing. It's perhaps partly a Judeo-Christian. I hate to bring in religion, but
no, that's fine.
God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
Right.
God said, "Let there be life," and there was life.
Right.
Sorry about it.
It's not intrinsic. Yeah, that it takes a maker, or it is made. It becomes at some point from matter.
Yeah.
When you say it's inextricable.
Absolutely.
Existence demands life.
Yeah.
There can't be a lifeless universe.
No.
That's very
I think that's true. And what's happening now in these last few weeks, I think, George, is also interesting. I mean, there are many people, including people, some I respect some of them, or many of them, who are making the case that the comet 3I Atlas is is the result of an intelligent action of some distant civilization. Okay, that this is really a spaceship that has been shoved out of a planet like the Earth with advanced technology, with an advanced human-like population, right? That was able to do space travel, send out stuff, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I find it romantic, that belief. I think I would like to believe it, but I think it's really, really far-fetched.
What do you think? We haven't discussed Three-Eye Atlas before. What are your thoughts? Elaborate on what you believe it could be, maybe, what it is not.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the solar system and then comets in the solar system, there's some 100 billion comets that are in a shell of comets just far away from the sun and the Earth, right? Enveloping the whole planetary system. There's a shell of comets, right? And it's from that shell, because the man who discovered that was called Jan Oort. It's the Oort shell of comets. And from that Oort shell of comets, we have comets like Halley's Comet and like the Rotation Comet and so on, coming in from time to time, pushed by gravitational interactions, right? They come into the inner solar system. They become short period comets. Comet Halley has a period of 86 years or so. They become short period comets, right?
Right.
And these are comets that we have also, apart from the cosmic dust, we have studied over many decades, and we think there is evidence for life in these comets. And we've written this book, for instance, called Living Comets. Fred and I wrote this book after examining in 1986 all of the evidence that we had from comets. So comets are living entities, are sort of carriers of life in our solar system, right? But they're carriers of primitive life. And there's been ample evidence in the last decade or two for comets having even sort of alcohol in them, methane, alcohol, and sugars and stuff like that, and remotely discovered, right? Comets crashing onto the Earth, we think, brought life as well. But what this Three-Eye Atlas and I should say that in addition to these comets that are indigenous to our solar system, that there are comets in our vicinity, belong to the solar system, there are also very occasionally comets that stream in from outside of the solar system in what are called hyperbolic orbits, right? They just come in and go out. And in the last 5 years, there have been at least 3. Comet Boris was one, not the Prime Minister of England, but it's a comet called Boris.
Right.
There was a comet called Oumuamua that was discovered by Americans in Hawaii. And the most recent was Comet Three-Eye Atlas. These are all hyperbolic comets. They have orbits that make it absolutely certain that they came from outside of our planetary system, right? So they're very interesting. If they came from outside of our planetary system and had signatures of biology, any kind of signatures of biology, it means there is life in a very distant planetary system way outside of our own solar system, right? So the Three-Eye Atlas now has recently shown the presence of methane in the outflowing gases. And methane is, of course, could be, or most likely to be, a biological product. Not necessarily a biological product, but it is possible. And there are astronomers like Avi Loeb who made a case for saying that this is not just a lump of ice or an inorganic comet, a lifeless comet. It is a spaceship that was sent out from a distant solar system and has entered our planetary system. And from really slight motions that are inexplicable in terms of normal dynamics, it's been argued that this is an artificial comet. It's been continually directed and redirected in little wiggles, right? But I find it very difficult to accept that, not because I think that life is very common and intelligent life is very common, but because this comet comes from a solar system, planetary system that's hundreds of light years away, right? And traveling at the speed it does, it would have taken pretty well over 1,000 years to reach us. And to think that there is a controlling civilization, space savvy civilization, maintaining and monitoring that progress over 1,000 years, I think is far-fetched. I think life is probably, I hate to say this, but is ephemeral. We live, we are born, we live, and we die. I don't think there could be life that lasts for 1,000 years. I don't think even a society could maintain. Right, we have trouble maintaining our political structures for more than a few decades, isn't it? So you got to assume if the AI is an intelligent, if this comet is an intelligent spacecraft, then some civilization, a society, human-like society, has to be monitoring, has to be controlling it for well over 1,000 years. Is that plausible? And I reckon it's probably not that plausible.
Well, you mentioned a name of someone who's very popular amongst our audience, I assume, and that's Avi Loeb.
Yeah.
And he's an astrobiologist of great media popularity now.
Yeah.
And would he agree with your work in the early 1970s when you said it actually is life that we're looking at, or is he still stuck on the building blocks?
Yeah, no, I think there's a sort of really almost an indecent tendency of not of Avi Loeb particularly, but to grab the best of these ideas for themselves. So they wouldn't accept that these ideas that we have discovered and discussed step by step, gradually, not all in one go, that we are the pioneers of any of this thing. They think that they're the first to come across these ideas. But I mean, I respect Avi Loeb and his mission to popularize these thoughts of life being cosmic and so forth. But in relation to the intelligent comet controlled by an intelligent civilization, I find it very difficult. I'd like to believe him, but I find it difficult to justify it for myself, for the simple reason that societies don't have coherent programs, even over one electoral cycle, isn't it?
Well, that's certainly true.
So over 1,000 years, over 2,000 years, to have to keep watching on a spacecraft that was sent by some ancient civilization on their planet, I think is too far-fetched.
But what Loeb is doing and others, they know of your work. But they seem inhibited to go all the way there because that would eliminate their career, which is creeping up on the truth, but never getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know quite how to capture it. Yeah, it's like they're almost bleeding out the knowledge that you initially dumped on the world.
Yeah. They know what they're doing, George. They know full well what they're doing. I mean, I'm not referring to any particular individual, but the collective group of scientists who are moving towards accepting life being cosmic want to regard the discovery as being theirs, not belonging to any earlier generation of scientists.
Right. That's just disgusting. And I will pin it on Loeb. I've watched Loeb for 10 years now and read his papers back when he was, not aliens 24/7. And he rarely would cite you. Can't say that you're without citation.
No, if they cite us, it's in a derogatory sense. They make out that I mean, this is a compilation of all of the arguments that we had for cosmic life in 1982, and 1982 was a really critical year in this. It's a long time ago now, right?
Right.
4.5 decades, nearly half a century ago. And by that time, 1982, Fred and I thought that we had got all the bits and pieces from genetics, from astronomy, from biology, to make the assertion that life has to be a cosmic phenomenon. There was proof that life is cosmic, right? And what we do about it, we publish papers in Nature. I think I sent you a whole list of papers, right?
Yes, sir.
Running
And we
into
will put them at the bottom of the
running
podcast.
into hundreds. I think very few people have that kind of record of hundreds of papers in the journal Nature in those days, right?
Right.
Very prestigious journal. Anyway, so
yeah, close to 70 papers in Nature.
Yeah,
proposing this, and they remain unrefuted. They didn't bother to go and refute them or take your argument apart.
No,
they just looked the other direction and crept along in a cautious and inhibited sense.
Yeah.
With that knowledge, but not letting it flourish and follow up on it, which is,
it's piracy. I think
it is. But then they're not even using the booty properly. Right? I mean, they captured a ship full of intellectual gold, and all they do is give us a coin now and then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's very. There's a filmmaker who's currently doing planning a film on paradigm shift, and the role of me and Fred in the paradigm shift. Right? It's California. Maybe it's not far from you. He's coming to Sri Lanka as well and filming me there. But he had interviewed a certain named person that I would like to name, but I should not name, right, on the program. Okay. And he had been asked, what does this guy think of the whole Wickramasinge ideas? And then his answer was that Fred Hoyle did a great piece of work in collaborating with Willy Fowler on the origin of the chemical elements in stars. But after that, his work has been nonsense.
That's really. Well, that's what they kind of did with Hoyle. He's known as the greatest British scientist of the 20th century. But then they take call it the last quarter of his career, when he was truly bringing his ideas together in a way that should have been profoundly important to everyone. He's dismissed. I don't want to say kook might be too strong. I don't know. He's dismissed. Yeah, he's not derided, but he's dismissed.
He's dismissed. And in fact, in his own assessment, I mean, there's a huge archive of Fred's papers, handwritten manuscripts and so on. And one of the really iconic manuscripts is his reflections on his career. And he says that by far, the most important contribution he has made to science in the long perspective, is his work with Chandra on understanding origins in the cosmos. Everything else pales into insignificance compared to the work I did with Chandra. That's on record at St. John's College, Cambridge Library. No one mentions it, but I've seen it.
Where they have a full-size bronze statue of Fred, correct? At Cambridge?
They have a full-size. Yeah. The other interesting thing is that there's a guy, I shouldn't mention names, but a man who was involved in the discovery of DMS, right? The dimethyl sulfur molecule in extragalactic source. He, at the moment, is in Cambridge. He occupies the same room that I occupied in the Institute of Astronomy in Cambridge. He looks over through his window and sees the bronze statue of Fred Hoyle in the lawn there. And not he particularly, but they refuse to admit that this discovery of DMS has any connection with the work that Fred and I have done over a half century.
Oh, my Lord. Chandra, you published a paper a few years ago. Well, I won't say it's a paper, it's an essay with Ted Steele, Viruses, E.T., and the Octopus from Space, The Return of Panspermia.
Yeah.
And I recommend this to absolutely everyone, and we'll put a link below the podcast.
Okay.
Could you tell us what y'all were communicating in this paper and what it means for evolution?
I think what it really means for evolution is twofold. First is that chemical evolution is just impossible. It's just a fantasy, a myth. So you cannot, if you have no life, and if you have only chemicals, you cannot get from chemicals to life. That's number one. And for once, if you accept that life is cosmic and life is sort of deposited on planets like the Earth at some early stage, then the further development of that life and the further evolution of that life is also deeply, intimately connected with an ongoing introduction of living material, bacteria, viruses, and so on from space. There's no other way in which life would evolve into the forms that we see. I mean, Darwinian evolution takes place, but it's essentially a fine-tuning of a much bigger process, right? So we are not denying Darwinian evolution. Darwinian evolution certainly is an important, and Charles Darwin was a very important scientist, but the main process of evolution, origin and evolution of life, is a cosmic process and is connected
that's underway right now.
Was it?
Right? That it's underway right now. This was not just a cosmic, bolt of light from the blue some billion years ago, that it's continuously contributing to our evolution. In other words, the Cambrian explosion. Explain what is the Cambrian explosion and why is it important? What does it indicate to us?
Yeah. I think all of that is a continuing process, and even the extinction of the mammoths and so on at the last end of the last ice age. All of that is happening as a cosmic force, isn't it? Because the cosmos is continuing to have a profound effect on the continuation, evolution of life on our planet. It has an effect.
In what way, though? Help us with the mechanics of life is coming into our atmosphere right now. What form is it in? Then how does it affect us and over what time periods, et cetera?
Continuing over right from the beginning of the origin of the universe on the Earth, the material that is coming in has genetic information, biological information, bacteria and viruses that could add on, act as an evolutionary force on the ongoing process of life's evolution on our planet, right? And even today, I think if you look at the material that is coming in, there's no question that hundreds of tons of biological material is coming into the Earth and is going completely unchecked, not researched even, right? We know that in 2001, as far back as 2001, when the Indian Space Research Organization and ourselves, we decided to conduct an experiment to send sort of probes to the stratosphere, bring back material in the stratosphere. And from that experiment, we concluded that hundreds of tons of material that contain biology, full of bacteria, new bacteria in certain cases, are coming in every single day, right? So the Earth is just awash with bacteria that's coming in, and what that bacteria and also viruses what they would do is to contribute to the evolution of life, isn't it? I mean, that's what happened. That's bacteria are known to, and viruses are known to transfer genes, DNA, bits of DNA, RNA from themselves into the higher organisms, the plants and animals that are on the Earth at any given time. So this is a continuing process, and without that process, I think life would not have advanced beyond the stage of a single-celled microorganism. So
Chandra, I think it's important right here, if you excuse my interruption, but for people to understand, because I didn't, and I think it's why I originally called you years ago, that what is coming in is not, I mean, people would think, okay, well, E. coli or some type of microbe. I don't believe a microbe can on its own survive ambient space, right? I mean, they're not living things unprotected, floating, however you want to call it, moving through space alone and unprotected. And what you clarified for me is the life is actually entombed inside cosmic dust. So if you think of and stop me if I'm getting anything wrong, but a piece of cosmic dust can almost be visible. I mean, this is not, you know, you don't need a powerful microscope to see this stuff that's coming in, bits of you know, the larger pieces. And that compared to the microbe makes a pretty good spaceship. I wanted you to explain to folks that the life isn't just floating around out there, that it would not survive, that it's actually entombed within cosmic dust. And the cosmic dust acts as a little spaceship for
absolutely.
desiccated.
The cosmic
Yeah,
dust are little micro spaceships in which there could
right.
be viruses, bacteria embedded in them, and those bacteria and viruses contain all the genetic information that is needed for the whole process of the evolution of life, right? It's a stepwise process. It doesn't happen all in one go. You have
Mhm.
bacteria being injected, and then there's essentially the whole Earth is colonized by simple-celled bacteria. Then, as new genetic material come in, they carry genetic genes for evolution, for progression from bacteria upwards and sideways, and in every possible way to enlarge the scope of life on the Earth. So that's what happens. And over 4 billion years, what's happened is that the entire picture of evolution has taken place through a continuing injection and assimilation of genes, of bacterial genes, viral genes that have come along with the cosmic dust. Cosmic dust delivered, we think, mostly by comets.
Chandra, I'm going to put something up that may be a little, well, I think you're probably above this. They've been beating you up for so long, but I'm going to add an article here that shows how ad hominem this is and just how poorly. This is a person's blog titled "Why Everybody Laughs at Wickramasinge and Should Continue to Do So." There you go. I like how you laugh.
Does
This
it give
is
an answer to that?
It's entirely, this delusion has a name, the Hoyle Wickramasinge theory, or HW theory. The main follower is currently as Wickramasinge himself, et cetera, and so forth. And it's just completely ad hominem. And then their problem is that when you summarize your theories, that you recently, to my surprise, an apparently reputable journal, blah, blah, published a paper authored by Wickramasinghe and his puppies. I mean, what in the hell? That basically goes through what you're telling us here.
Yeah.
And then their criticism is that you quote, that you cite your own work, that you cite you and Fred's work from the 70s.
Yeah.
And that somehow that's, improperly recursive to cite your own work. Well, hell, nobody followed up on your work. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. But who are these? These are reputable scientists or what?
I don't believe so. I don't think a reputable scientist would make fun of people and
No, I
not
don't think so.
address their central contentions and refute the evidence, which they don't.
No, I think it's prejudice. I think it's also partly, I've written papers about it, it's probably partly racism as well. I mean, there's a huge racial component of the disdain that has gone around connected with this theory.
But they're non-Sri Lankans on the paper, although there are a number of names from people that aren't British. But my gosh, I just hate to think that racism can infect science to the degree that they won't address a reputable scientist. I mean, you remember the British Empire, the Queen gave you an honorific, and Fred was made a
knight.
knight. And then this person goes and makes, if you want to laugh more or torture yourself with more bullshit, you can read the whole paper.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that Wickramasinge would better fit in a sensationalist and anti-scientific place such as nonsense shows on the History Channel than in a science lab. My God, you won a scholarship as a 17-year-old in Sri Lanka from the Queen and traveled on a steamship to the hands of Fred Hoyle for a free education. And this person is challenging you as a scientist.
Yeah,
it must be incredibly frustrating, Chandra.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's not isolated. I think there's he's more vocal in his expletives and so on. But I think that's the general, not the view, but that's the arguments that have been used to essentially to ignore what's happening in science, and so when discoveries are made which are supportive of this, the fact that they ignore the discoveries and don't attribute any priorities also to a component of the ideas, then that's also the same thing.
Chandra, when we were speaking last week, we discussed a mutual of interest of ours and our mutual friend, far better friend of yours, but I do count him as an acquaintance and treasure that, Robert Temple, in his interest in the Kordylewski clouds. Could you tell us what the Kordylewski clouds are and what their importance might be and what kind of research is pending on them?
Yeah, well, I think what the Kordylewski clouds have been talked about for pretty close to half a century, and they were discovered by a Polish astronomer, and the discovery was questioned. They argued that this is not a genuine discovery; it's an artifact. It's some kind of a blip in the radio telescopes that produce this. The effects that are attributed to the Kordylewski clouds. But over the years, it's been absolutely clear now that the Kordylewski clouds are clouds of dust particles that exist really at the stationary points in the, what's it called, in the Lagrange points, the stationary points in the Earth-Moon system, right? So, and one of them is very close to the Earth and very close to the Moon. And Robert Temple has reviewed all of the data relating to those clouds, and they're just absolutely fascinating set of data that's available at the moment. So, what are they? They're charged particles, charged dust particles. That's almost as certain to be true. Are they Fred Hoyle's black clouds? Are they intelligent? Can they act as an intelligent entity? Each individual cloud is it a collection of vast amount of information, and so on. So these are unanswered questions at the moment. And one of the projects that I've been roped into or involved in recently is to study the Kordylewski clouds using a radio telescope that has been donated by Lord Tanlaw in the House of Lords in the UK to the University of Colombo in Sri Lanka.
Right.
And this is going to be set up hopefully in the next few months. And I think one of the priorities is to focus on the Kordylewski clouds. There are three telescopes in the Tanlaw. This guy's benefactions have a telescope in Sri Lanka now from next month, a telescope in Scotland in the north of England, north of the UK, and a telescope in California. So we are hoping to use the three telescopes as a gigantic interferometer to amplify the weak signals that will be coming out of this, one of the Kordylewski clouds, and see what it tells us. So,
have they already noted radio signals from the clouds?
Yeah, they have noted radio signals on the cloud. And according to, I haven't looked at the data myself, but according to Robert Temple's reading of various stuff that has been written about the clouds, there's even a statement that some radio astronomers looking at the clouds in 1969 or maybe 1971 or something, recorded or listened to a BBC radio program that was broadcast at the end of the Second World War. Can you believe that?
Hold on. Drop the mic.
Yeah.
Literally. Say that again. That people listened in on the cloud.
That in the cloud was transmitting a piece of radio transmission that was connected with the end of the Second World War, a BBC broadcast, and that is 30 years on. Unbelievable. I don't believe. I like not to believe it, even because it's not credible. I think it's
certainly intriguing now that we're going to listen in on them. Why?
So somebody
radio telescopes, why doesn't that interfere if we have things just in a Earth Moon distance, in association with, our little orbits here? Why wouldn't we regularly encounter those transmissions?
I think that for the most part, it's the cloud. This is borders on science fiction, right? The cloud probably has decided to be silent. They're not transmitting anything. Maybe they're receiving signals from the Earth. This is all science fiction. There's nothing.
Yeah, well, and it's just rank speculation. But I like rank speculation on the Cosmic Tusk podcast.
Yeah, but the cloud, the reality of the clouds is beyond question. There are these clouds, and they are radio. They have a radio signal associated with them, and oscillating radio signal. So there could be messages that are being buried in the radio signal. And my sort of my intrigue in this is that it's really very similar to Fred Hoyle's Black Cloud, isn't it?
Well, tell us about that book that he published in the 1950s.
Yeah. A black cloud appears in the sky. Astronomers discover that there's a dark cloud approaching the solar system, or within the solar system, approaching the Earth. And all of the astronomers on the planet, including the Fred Hoyle's predecessors in Cambridge and so on, are completely taken aback by this, and they decide to have meetings and conferences and so on to try to decide what to do. Do they try to shoot it down? Do they try to destroy it, and so on? And in the midst of doing all of this, the cloud apparently, I think, has sent various messages that are recorded, and then it suddenly disappears. It goes away.
And this is Hoyle. This was a decade or two before the discovery, and certainly decades before the confirmation of the Kordylewski cloud.
Yeah,
so he predicted an intelligent cloud of, what would you say? Do you say cosmic dust?
Yeah, cosmic dust is what he thought the cloud was made of.
Okay, but doesn't all cosmic dust come from comets, basically?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so then it finds itself swirled up and stilled at certain points gravitationally between Earth and the Moon.
Yeah.
Still spots where it's not going to get pulled one way or another. It's, it's in equilibrium at that location.
A stationary point, and they call the Lagrange points in the Earth in a three-body system or something.
Right. Okay. But you also maintain that cosmic dust has entombed in it life particles. Do you believe there are life particles actually within the cloud?
I think there has to be. I mean, if what you're saying is true, that a large fraction of the dust in space is made up of living particles, then the cloud has to incorporate the bacterial dust and the cometary dust that we think contains living material in them, isn't it?
But let's break that down a little bit. It contains potentially living material. Just add water and heat, right? Just so people don't misunderstand.
Yeah.
Right. And that while it is part of the comet itself, there is enough heat that it may maintain actual life within the comet.
Yeah, but
But
the actual life that has been talked about is not biology of the particles itself, but interactions between the particles that
right,
are
I was right,
acting coherently as almost like a computer, right?
right. I was going to make that distinction. We're not speculating that the life particles themselves, which may be desiccated, hibernated,
Yeah, yeah,
etc.,
yeah.
yeah, that they are intrinsically intelligent or communicating, etc.
No,
But
no,
it's
no.
more the interaction of the particles
Yeah,
themselves and the plasma,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The
The,
plasma, the entire set of charged particles
right.
acting as a intelligent entity or an informationally rich entity.
Hmm. That, as Robert believes, has been recording us since the beginning of time
Yeah, that's right.
and
Yeah.
is indeed listening to us right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Hmm. Very strange, because we're probably the only people on microphones in the entire world today to use the term Kordylewski clouds, and it seems to be a tremendously important
I think so. It's been ignored.
phenomena.
It's been utterly ignored from the time that it was first written about by Mr. Kordylewski, a Polish astronomer who detected it. But then I think about 10 years or 15 years ago, there's a paper in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society that says that the confirms the existence of the clouds. So the existence of the clouds is not in question anymore. But the role of the clouds and what the clouds are doing there, I think that's open to debate and question.
And Chandra, let me switch gears on us a little bit and kind of return to an earlier subject, one that may be kind of difficult. Just curious, did you encounter racism when you came to Cambridge as a
Oh yeah,
teenager?
very much so. I think it was the height of racism in Cambridge. I didn't personally encounter racism from an academic perspective. My fellow students and the fellows of the colleges, the lecturers, and so on. There no racism there, but the general public was entirely was heavily racist. I mean, there were if you go when I walked past very familiar streets in Cambridge, there were boards, there were little signs on windows saying no blacks, no dogs, no cats. So they were trying to rent rooms to students, but no blacks, no cats, no dogs.
Even ones that the Queen gave scholarships to.
Yeah, no difference between anyway. If you're
What
black,
was
you're
it like
black.
as a 17-year? Well, you were 17 or 18, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it was very bad. It was very bad. And it was also, this feeling was stoked up by a very distinguished historian and a classical scholar, a man called Enoch Powell, who was a minister in the conservative government of the time, right? And he had made a speech saying, if we don't curb immigration from the countries in the third world, we'd have rivers of blood in the United Kingdom, right? So the rivers of blood speech was on the tips of the tongues of all of the guys who were trying to make their life difficult for immigrants. But
How
I
often
mean,
did you
that's
see your family back then? Were you homesick?
once a year. I went home, and yeah,
Hmm. And you're traveling back to Sri Lanka here soon, aren't you?
yeah, just for 3 weeks. I mean, my first trip back to Sri Lanka was on an airplane, on one of
Okay.
these very early airplanes. What are they called?
Right.
Yeah, with a propeller and so on, right?
A
And
DC-9 prop plane and
yeah,
had
something
to
like
land 4 or 5 times to get to Sri
that.
Lanka?
Yeah, a long time. And then I was seated, and they were bumpy rides. They were not very
Were they?
smooth rides in those days. So I was seated on the plane, and then next to me was a rather sort of big made white guy
Okay.
uh, who turned to me and said, "I mean, you're from Sri Lanka. You should be used to this bumpy rides because the roads are so bad in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, oh
If
my gosh.
you go in a bus, you'll be rocked about in the same way." And that person turned out to be Arthur C. Clarke.
Oh, wow. I mean, I knew you
So,
were great friends with him, but I didn't know
yeah,
that
yeah,
that's how you met.
that was my first meeting with Arthur C. Clarke. So then he heard about my work and research and with Fred Hoyle and so on, and we had a long relationship interaction. that followed. I sent Brittany
Yeah.
little clip. I think you can use it perhaps to advantage, because I kept very close contact with him, and I published a book called Cosmic Dragons, summarizing the whole story in the late 1980s, and he wrote a foreword for it, and that foreword is interesting to read. It's
well, for people that are unfamiliar, and it'd be a shame if there are, but there might be a generation that doesn't know who Arthur C. Clarke is. But I guess the first touch point was he authored 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
So
and during the period he was writing that Space Odyssey, he wrote it. He was in Sri Lanka for most of his life, right? I think he arrived in Sri Lanka at the age of 33 or 34 or something, and he lived there all through his life. And whilst he was writing the 2001, I was visiting back and forth to see family and so on, and kept in touch with him. And he had a room assigned for him in a very ancient hotel, very sort of famous hotel in Colombo called the Goldface Hotel. Right, there was a chunky typewriter given to him, and he was chugging away at this typewriter, writing his script for 2001. And when he knew that I was in Sri Lanka, he often asked me to come and talk to him and so on. He was very keen on cosmic life, right? So I went there, and that was my continuing connection with Arthur C. Clarke. We are going to the same hotel on the weekend.
Are you really?
And the room that I met with him and had all these interactions is still there, and there's a bronze statue of Arthur C. Clarke in that room.
He made a number of predictions that were borne out, some now for decades. Please tell us, what he predicted about satellites, and what did he predict for 2025?
Oh, 2025 was an amazing prediction. He said AI would take precedence over human intelligence. It would overtake human intelligence, and it would begin controlling human affairs.
And when did he make that prediction?
This was in a book that he published, one of the last books. I got a copy of it somewhere. Carbon-Based Greetings. The title is Greetings, Carbon-Based Bipeds, in which he gives year by year an account of what he thinks. I mean, he regarded himself as a prophet of the future, right? So every year there's an entry as to what's going to happen. And so in the year 2025, he says that AI becomes important. In the year of the return of Halley's comet, he says that Fred Hoyle and Chandra Wickramasinghe would be fully vindicated when spacecraft would land on Comet Halley and discover it to be teeming with life, with microbial life. So that's in that.
When did he believe that would happen?
It's 80 years on from the last average. And it'll be 2065 or something.
Huh. Well, I hope it doesn't take that long to prove you out. I think we're creeping up to it in other ways, but it may take that long to put a lander on it. But so decades in advance, he predicted to the year. I mean, depends on where you mark it, but 2025 was a pretty big year in artificial intelligence. How in the hell was he able to reverse engineer progress or forward engineer that?
Yeah. And artificial intelligence was just coming into sort of the discussion arena at the time that he wrote this. There wasn't even hard evidence that it was going to do anything. So to predict this is quite amazing. And then the Halley's Comet prediction is also quite amazing, I think.
It certainly are. Do you believe in regular old aliens? I've said before that it's very disjointed, that if you surveyed the public, high percentage of people would believe that aliens, relatively high, would believe that aliens enter your windows at night and probe your anus before they'll believe that they're microbes in space. Right? And aliens are, and UFOs and whatnot, they had as big a year as AI. It's just incredible. The things that are being suggested by high government officials in the recent documentary, et cetera. And you're talking about, I guess you call them living, breathing, 3D big creatures. But we resist the work of Hoyle and Wickramasinge. So Avi Loeb can go claim spacecraft. But you're still in the doghouse for claiming microbes.
That's amazing. I think it's there's a natural instinct, it seems, in humans. I mean, when you say that there's the macroscopic aliens that are being talked about or thought about, they are easier to convince people than microbes from space. Maybe there is a natural instinct in humans to believe in aliens.
Yeah, there must be, and I think also that I don't know, there's something inhibiting people, and we're running too far along. If I were a self-respecting alien, I wouldn't disclose myself to us if we haven't accepted the premise that life is cosmic, intrinsic, and everywhere, right? It would seem to be out of order, and that then we would be introduced to those things. And it seems to me that we've got to wrap our brains around, accept, study, make progress on the fact that microbial life, et cetera, is intrinsic before we would understand the macroscopic stuff.
I think that's probably true. I think that admitting macroscopic aliens to a scientist or even discussing it with scientists is just way out at the moment. But if aliens exist and macroscopic aliens exist, then that would be a different matter. When they make themselves known to be around in whatever form they take, then the situation would be different.
What else is on your mind these days? What are you reading?
What am I reading?
Don't mean to put you on the spot, but I always wonder,
Yeah, I was going to send you. I've written a book of haiku poems and published it in Sri Lanka. I've got a few thousand copies. So that's what I'm.
That's what I want to be reading. Send me a link to that. Yeah,
I can send you. Give me a postal address. I'll send you some in the post.
Okay, we'll do that.
Was it? Buddhism. And Buddhism, yeah. And the role of Buddhism in science. I've been writing a few essays on that. I can send you that as well, right?
What is the role of Buddhism in science? How does
Buddhism in science is very important because Buddhism is open to new ideas and so on. There's dogmatism is very it's a very distant situation in Buddhism, and you're supposed to respect the truth and regard only the facts that are verifiable as being true. Don't heed the advice or the wisdom of any person that tells you that the world is the way it is. Find things out for yourself is the sort of key to Buddhism, and also the peace that reigns across the entire Buddhist philosophy is really quite remarkable. There was a iconic speech that was made by one of our Sri Lankan presidents at the end of the Second World War, when the Japanese were being asked for reparations. They did a lot of damage in the Far East. Right? They bombed Sri Lanka also, left, right, and center. So when there was a meeting in San Francisco requesting reparations from Japan after the end of this war, the Sri Lankan president said, we are not going to ask for reparations. We are a Buddhist nation, and according to the philosophy of Buddhism, hatreds do not cease by hatreds, but by love. And that's a sort of key message of Buddhism, that Buddhism would be the only route to world peace. If you need a religion to to create a new world, and a new world that is peaceful rather than belligerent as we have now. I mean, everyone is fighting with everyone else now, isn't it? It's a very sad picture we have at the moment of international politics. War is the norm.
Right. Right. Well, it certainly is, but I'm going to have to brush up on my Buddhism. But it is that Buddhism is about the search for the truth. That
Yeah,
is the central core
the
of it.
objective search. I mean, in its sense, Buddhism has to be stripped of all the sort of, I don't know, the rituals and so on. The essential philosophy of Buddhism is the search for objective truth and the propagation of universal love.
And
you
Are you a
can't do that.
Buddhist?
Well, I know I was brought up in a Buddhist culture, so I suppose I could call myself a Buddhist. I don't go to frequent temples or anything like that, but I would think of myself more as a Buddhist than any other religion.
Philosophically Buddhist, if not
Yeah.
regularly practicing.
Hmm.
Tell us about your family. I just want to know a little bit more about you personally. Where are your children?
Yeah.
Tell about your wife, who's always off screen and a little bit. Maybe she could peek in.
She's in now, and I can get her to come. I can get her to come around.
Get her to peek around the camera.
Yeah, peek around the camera. But I tell you, I think I've published. I published my background in various places, but I was born to a family that was in the heyday of the British Raj. Right, my father was a mathematician himself. He went to Cambridge. He got a first-class honors degree in mathematics. He topped his batch. He was at Trinity College, Cambridge. He was a pupil of Sir Arthur Eddington, who was a Plumian professor at the time. And Eddington was, at the time that my father was a student in the 1920s, he was struggling to get Einstein's theory of relativity accepted by scientists, right? It was disputed, it was slandered, and so on. So he thought he believed in the theory. He thought the theory was absolutely true in terms of all its detail. And so one of the experiments that needed to be done was to check a prediction of Einstein's theory that light is bent when it passes close to a huge, massive object like the sun or a star or something. A light beam that sort of skims the surface of the sun would be slightly bent, right? So what was happening in 1927 was there was an eclipse of the sun taking place, and the eclipse was visible in South Africa. So he was looking for people to go with him, or assistants to go with him, to make these measurements of a star near the limb of the sun when it's eclipsed, right? When the moon comes over it, an eclipse, and you can see. Normally, you can't see, the sun is so bright you can't see a star that is very close to the limb of the sun. Obviously, right? It's completely occluded. But when it becomes darkened by the moon coming over, there will be a few stars very close to the limb of the sun. And if he measures the position of that, then he can decide whether the light was bent as it passes past the sun, right? So this was a very straightforward experiment. And he needed assistant to go with him. And one of the people he asked was my father, but my father couldn't go with him because he had some other problems with his scholarship and so on. But so he was my father was a mathematician, and he studied astronomy in Cambridge under Eddington. He was supervised by Eddington. Eddington was a forerunner of Fred Hoyle. He had the same position, Plumian professor in Cambridge. So that was my father. He got the highest honors and so on. And 1927. So when I was born in 1939, I was born into a family that was already sort of Anglophile, in the sense that my father was very much sort of admirer of the English language, and a scientist, a mathematician, and so on. So that's the kind of family I grew up in. We had loads of books in our in our house. And father had a huge library and so on. So,
and your brother was a scientist as well, right?
Yeah, I had three brothers, right?
Oh, you had three brothers.
I was the eldest of the family. 2 years younger than me was a medical. He was a medic, and he was a very successful medic. He ended up as professor at St. Mary's Hospital in the University of London, right? His specialty was a disease called myeloma, cancer of the blood. And before he was 70, he succumbed to his own specialty, and he died at the age of 69 or something. So that was my second, just 2 years younger than me. Right. Then another 3 years younger than me is Dial, who was a professor, who is also a mathematician. He was trained in Cambridge, and he became professor at the Australian National University in Canberra. And he was a guy who was involved in that experiment on bacteria in space, right? Mm-hmm. He had access to the Anglo-Australian telescope, and he and his team made that remarkable experiment where he got a spectrum of a bacterium, sort of essentially falling out of the sky. He turned his telescope and he found exactly the spectrum of a bacterium that we had predicted about 6 months earlier. And I remember Fred was visiting us in Cardiff at the time, and Dial, my brother, had made this discovery, and he was so excited. He instantly faxed it. There was no emails or anything. There was a fax machine, and we had a fax machine at home. So the fax machine churned out a roll of paper where the spectrum of bacterium turned out to be exactly as we had predicted. And so Fred and I looked at each other and said, "This is it."
It was it. Just nobody followed up.
Nobody followed up, and we published papers. We had then meetings and so on, and people argued against it for various reasons. But that evidence hasn't gone away. I think it's a very, very powerful evidence. And then my youngest brother, who was 10 years younger than me, he didn't have a brilliant career at university or anything. He went to London University. He got his degree, he got his PhD, and so on. But he became a very successful scientist in the United States.
Oh, he did.
And last year, he was elected to the Royal Society of London and to the National Academy of Sciences in the United States.
Really? And what is his name? I'm going to look him up.
Kumar, H.K. Wickramasinge. H. Kumar.
H.K. Wickramasinge? Yeah.
And he's at the University of Irvine in California at the moment, a senior professor there.
At one time, 4 were professors.
Was it?
All 4 of you were professors at one time in different fields.
Yeah, my wife is telling me all 4 of my father's sons, that is our family, was professors at reputed universities in the US or in the UK. Or Australia.
Well, tell me about your own children.
We have a dog. 3. I've forgotten that. 3 children. The eldest is a boy. He's a son. Our son studied maths and in Cambridge.
But didn't want to do anything after
that. But didn't want to do anything after that.
Right.
He's gone into computing and so on. So they're not high flyers at all.
They're lazy.
Priya says they're lazy. You'll see her now. Come on. You have to show her.
No, tell them Kamala went to Cambridge and read English. She can
nice. Kamala is the next down the line. My daughter, who's been I collaborated with her on a book or 2.
Right.
She read English. She studied English in Cambridge. She got a degree in English, right? At the same college.
It's very hard to get into Cambridge.
And Priya has reminded me, it's very hard to get into Cambridge. It's like getting into Harvard or Yale in the US.
And money like us.
Especially, she says, "You will come here and show your face."
No,
no,
thank you.
You come in.
Please, Miss White.
Yeah, he has to see you. Come on in. That's you're perfect. So, and the youngest was did the best. She also did maths. She got a first class honors degree in maths, and she is an actuary and earning a lot of money. Actuary is insurance advisor.
Sure. Yeah, they need mathematicians at insurance companies, or the insurance companies go broke.
She did a PhD.
Priya.
Youngest.
Yeah, this is me. Yeah, not a pretty sight.
She did.
And it's Priya, right?
Yeah, Priya.
Hold on. There you are.
If you look at Priya Wickramasinge on the internet, she's listed as a chef. And
I'm not a chef. I've never learned to cook.
A writer of cookery books. She's written cookery books.
Actually, I have to be truthful about it. I was lucky that a publisher who published Fred Hoyle's and Chandra's books, just the director of the company said, can you send me some recipes? I didn't bother. And then he kept bugging me. And finally, I sent the recipes. And next thing you know, I'm a published author.
Well, that's fantastic.
And you know Bloomsbury, the publisher. Have you heard of Bloomsbury in London? They did the Harry Potter books. Bloomsbury published one of my books. And they all sold out and it went into paperback. But I don't have a career. I've never learned to cook or never done anything. I just stay at home and 3 children and a husband to boot. So that's been my life. And my husband won't travel anywhere unless I go. And so I do all the donkey work. And that's it.
The donkey work is the work. He just gets to sit around and think.
You said it. Yeah, it's true.
He gets to think, and you get to do.
True. But I've lived through this Panspermia malarkey for a long time, and all the antagonism and etc. But at the end, now that we're at the end of our lives, there's nothing we can do but wait and see what happens. And in time, I think truth will out. It won't be in our lifetime, is my own prediction personally, because too many forces at work. No, it's true, because you know what he says is non-theistic to begin with, and so Europeans want to focus everything for themselves. I hate saying this; it's a WASP territory.
Yeah,
that I noticed. And in Cambridge, although Chandra said there's no racism towards him within the university, but there's intense jealousy in workplaces, because everybody wants to trample on you and get ahead, and that was it. So
that's just the dark side of science, isn't it?
Yeah, dark side of life, I would say. Don't restrict it to science. It's there everywhere, where they are looking at places of work in Britain, however high and good you are. There's a sort of, I can't explain exactly how it happens, but it happens. And from my point of view, having lived here, wanting to integrate, etc., and speak in the language and doing everything that the Brits can do, I can show them a thing or two. I must say that there is prejudice. The minute they see your brown face, I don't care whether I go to the school when my children were 5, 6, 7 years old to pick them up, there is intense prejudice and racism due to ignorance. They think that we come from some kind of hellhole, that we don't have a culture or a background or an upbringing. It might be different from the Western way of doing things, which is true. But it is a way of life, where there's food and caring. But now I think I find that people are considering being compassionate and kind and accepting people for what they are. So I've lived in the same house now for 52 years and I'm quite happy in the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of, dare I use the word, riffraff. And our neighbors are extra nice to us and I'm extra nice to them as well in return. So you give a little and take a little. That's the glory of love, as you know the song, if you do. Anyway, that's it, George. Wonderful. Nice to see you. Chandra really likes talking to you, and thank you for putting him on the map on your podcast. And
I believe in oral history, and he's fantastic oral history. And the more that you can record of this stuff, it's going to be more valuable.
See, I told you
when he's proven right, and I just want to get him on record. What actually happened? How did it feel? Priya, what are your recollections of Fred Hoyle?
Fred Hoyle, incredible brain, incredible man who had novel ideas about everything. And would you believe it that once Fred left Cambridge and we came to Cardiff, he kept in touch with Chandra. And the first time he came to Cardiff, I said, I had two young children at the time, not the third one. And I said, Fred, would you like to stay with us or go to a hotel nearby? And he said, he'll stay here. So he has stayed here many times, right? And he'd eat whatever I give him. He liked his food. But if we were at the dinner table, whatever the discussion was, he had a kind of a unique angle. I still remember about him talking to the children, asking, why do elephants flap their ears? And my elder daughter can play the piano beautifully. She has won prizes for piano playing. And Fred's mother studied music in London. So he really appreciated the classical music because she has to practice for her lesson. Because he was here, life had to go on. We couldn't stop everything for him. But he and Chandra used to walk up all over the hillside near our house. And he really enjoyed the food I cooked because I make everything at home, from my marmalade, etc. And that was it. So he kept coming. And finally, he couldn't come. He couldn't travel when he was really old. And he went to live with his son in a separate apartment with his wife in Bournemouth. And that's where we met them the last time we saw him. And but he's...
I highly recommend Chandra's book about his relationship with Fred. Is it Journeys with Hoyle or Journeys with Fred?
Yeah, and Fred's only son, when he was a teenager, they sent him to Sri Lanka on holiday with Chandra's family to stay there for 2 weeks, and he traveled the island. And he died of a heart attack about less than a year ago. But his wife keeps in touch with us. You know, she had a memorial for Fred and for Fred's son in St. John's College, Cambridge, and we were the only non-white people who were there. And they acknowledge us as human beings. Do you know?
Well, I would imagine so. They'd have to know of Fred's work with Chandra.
Yeah, more than that, as people, you know, never mind the intellect and the scientific work, they're decent human beings. And what else can I say about them? That's it. So, you know, when I go back to Sri Lanka, people say, how can you live in England with the white people who are anti? I said, they're not. Not everybody is anti. So I have close friends who are as close as if I was in Sri Lanka with them. And we share secrets and keep things to ourselves. And we think the same way. And it's not only Welsh or English. I even have a French friend whom I can relate to, which I really like. She was brought up as a Catholic in a convent in France. So you can imagine how poles apart our lives are. Otherwise, tell me about North Carolina.
North Carolina, right center of the eastern seaboard.
Yes, I know where it is. And I know you can read a magazine and then you're in Dayton, Ohio from North Carolina. Anyway.
Well, we've got a connection to Dayton, Ohio. It's the Wright brothers left Dayton, Ohio, and came down here and flew the first plane.
Well, true. Anyhow, oh dear, he's put the light on. Otherwise, I don't know what else to say. We have American friends who are kind to us, and we keep in touch with them, non-Sri Lankans, and that's about it.
Well, you have a lot of friends and admirers over here. I tell you, one is Brian Dobbs, and he's done a lot of work to popularize your data and your studies. Yeah. Blue Planet Red.
That's right. Yeah.
But Priya, I'm going to come see you. I've got a long-standing, commitment to Chandra to come visit in person.
Yeah, you got to come and see it.
And we have got to do that. But what would you cook for me?
I don't know. Ask and you shall receive. No, it's true, from roast beef to whatever. But right now, in a stage of our lives, I'm trying to make ourselves eat much less animal protein, and we're focusing on lentils and green veg and salads and stuff. So every day I cook. I don't.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, you're taking good care of him. I mean, Chandra, you're 87 and pretty good health.
Yeah, we have to. How can I say? I tell him this. Sometimes he says, "Oh, I don't feel like eating that." I said, "Tough," because I think of our bodies as a machine that we have to keep well oiled.
Yeah.
Other than the exercise and things, and food is a thing. So I don't drink milk now, although when I grew up in Colombo, we had a cow in our back garden in the heart of the city. So we have reduced drinking milk, etc. But off and on we do break the rules and have a bit of cheese, but not on a day-to-day basis like we used to when we were young.
Did you know each other as young people and then Chandra went away? I mean, how did how did you become a couple?
How did we become a couple? We met in Sri Lanka. He came on holiday.
Yeah.
And then what else can I say?
I spent a year teaching at a university in Sri Lanka, and so it was that time that we met.
Chandra got a Commonwealth scholarship to Trinity College, and they pay you handsomely. They give you money for books, clothing allowance, and money to go home every year. So he was lucky in his what he got. But boy, didn't he work hard for it. All his life he was blinkered and studied, and that was it. And his father kind of encouraged the boys to study and not to do anything else. No going dancing with girls or playing cricket in the back garden like I used to. That's it. So, but I don't know whether now you can't have that control over the children. You have to give them freedom to do what they like. It was a different time of year in the world, I mean, and we grew up in a different culture. But that was he grew up in the 50s, and we had just had independence, so you can't relate that same thing now. Tell me, when are you planning to come, if at all, to Britain? I'll tell you why.
It may be, I kind of want to go to Ireland, maybe this spring.
Do you have Irish connection?
Well, I've got just digital connections. You know, you just develop these digital friends. And I've got Philip. Yeah. There's also the University of North Carolina is playing football over there. I think this summer.
Yeah,
I have to look at the date again. Yeah, so I was going to go see my friend in Tipperary, Philip O'Fallon.
Tipperary. It's a long way.
Tipperary.
You know the song War? It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's the classic Irish location and landscape. And one day I was talking to him and I said, "Hey, Phil, turn your camera on. Let me see." And there he was in a field of clover with sheep. And I mean, it was just like right out of a movie. I mean, he truly, and I said, "I've just got
green. You're right. It's green and the hillside is luscious. It rains a lot. And it's lovely farming country, beautiful landscape."
Well, I know they're different nations, and it's not a drive from your place to his, but I think if I can get on that side of the pond, I'll come see you.
There's a plane you can catch from.
Is there?
To Cardiff, yeah. I must say, if you're coming, come soon rather than later, because time is of the essence for the elderly, meaning me and him.
I understand. No, that's much on my mind.
Yeah. Well, I tell everybody the same thing. You know, come if you're coming. Don't postpone it. And
I understand. Yeah, and I'm joining I'm joining the elderly in less than a week. I'll be 60.
That's young. That's young.
That's right. It is young, and that's the way I'm going to think about it. But I want to be the young 87-year-old that you are, and I'll just have to find someone to feed me right.
When is your birthday, Brian?
February 16th on Monday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The Valentine's Day. Oh gosh.
So I was born right when they were right when Fred and Chandra were formulating their initial work, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you married?
Priya, it is a pleasure to meet you. And Chandra, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Let's catch back up when they get the first data back from those Kordylewski clouds. Is that going to happen this year?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. And Brian, I told him to look up the dates and write down about this quotation that Arthur C. Clarke made, but he didn't do it. I noticed that he didn't. I couldn't get up and make a big fuss with the books around, so I didn't. Right. And you have to talk. I didn't want to break the continuity. So he does say it in black and white about Chandra and Fred's theory. They'll be vindicated. But he didn't give you the right chapter and verse. So look it up and send it. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Because it's
please
do. Specific.
Huh. Anyway, well, that day is going to come, and I defy y'all's prediction. I think that Chandra will be alive and will be vindicated and there to enjoy it. We just don't know the day, right?
Yeah. I think things are happening. I mean, in terms of the facts being unraveled, they're happening very, very fast, isn't it?
That's right.
Sugars and meteorites, biomolecules and exoplanets, comet AI, if that's artificial comet, I don't believe it, but it's all happening, and it's
But
So-
I'm going to add a thing they say here. It will have to be God willing in terms of
Yeah.
our life and everything happening in our lifetime. But
Well-
we'll wait and see. We can't predict. You know, in Buddhism, they always say that there's an impermanence. Nobody's sure. I can only say that I'm looking at you now. Here's looking at you, kid, as they say. But
Right.
otherwise, that I don't know what tomorrow brings or any other day, for that
No,
matter.
we certainly don't. We don't know which
Yeah.
day it's going to be, but that day is going to come.
I hope so. We have to live in hope. That's what you have, no? Hope.
The
Well-
truth always prevails, George. I
It
think
does.
truth is indomitable.
Yeah, but I guess vindication isn't always provided within someone's life. It certainly wasn't
No,
for Fred.
No,
But
no, I think human failings and flaws in human conduct and character, I think, intervene, isn't it?
indeed
There's too
they
much
do.
jealousy.
Well, thank you both very much.
Yeah, all the best.
I do want to come see you sincerely, and I look
Okay.
forward
Yeah,
to
I know. I believe you.
Yeah. And I treasure the relationship, and I just appreciate you joining us here on the Cosmic Tusk podcast again, Chandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll send you some reprints and articles and so on. And on
And-
Buddhism.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
try to
And we'll put a
convert
number
people.
of links below for people to look further into your work, okay?
Okay.
Because it is very rewarding, as I have come to understand over the last decade and a half. So
Yeah.
thank you both very much.
Yeah.
And
And Brian, if you want that poetry book, please send a postal address. It might be I'll have to leave it with our children to post to you. Otherwise,
well, certainly we'll do that. That's
yeah.
terrific.
in
Okay.
Cardiff.
Well, y'all have a wonderful day. And
Thank you.
and hope to see you soon.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
all
you.
the best. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.